Welcome, everybody, to Leaders of Lifestyle podcast. I'm your host, Michael Ferraro, and with us today is a very special guest, Scott Hobbs from Hobbs Incorporated, one of the finest, well-known, high-end custom home builders in multiple markets like Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, and the Hamptons. So for people who don't know, they are absolutely one of the most respected custom home builders that you can find. Been in business for over 65 years. Scott and his brother Ian took over the business a couple of years ago and have just been crushing it. Nothing but great reviews. So to have an expert in the custom home build world, it's a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much, Scott.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So I wanted to have you on because, we took to finance experts, mortgage, everything in real estate, some of the best agents in the country, and building. In our market of Lower Fairfield County, in that metro area, high-end custom homes, the market has been going crazy lately about, is the housing market crashing? What do we do? There's no inventory, the interest rates. So I figured between me and you, maybe we can shed some light onto maybe what's going on, and you can kind of fill in the audience from your perspective, the
Sure.
custom high-end home building world. Okay.
Sure.
So let's just kind of get right into it. In the current market that we have, with all the craziness going on, how are you seeing custom homes for you in the business model?
Sure. So it's right now, things are very, very busy. The reality for custom construction is that our market basically follows real estate transactions like night follows day.
Right.
And as everybody knows, the last couple of years, there's been an infinite number of real estate transactions. And so, while you could move into almost any house and live there doing something, a lot of houses need upgrade. And after the 10 years in the teens, things were very, very, a lot of the housing stock was neglected. It was not updated the way that it should have been. And so as it changes hands, people expect to go ahead and live in a much more modern house. The mechanical systems, the HVAC, the electric, the plumbing, they all need to be upgraded. Roofs need to be repaired. Windows are outdated. Floor plans aren't quite right. So you got to redo the floor plans. And then the decorating ends up not working either. So very quickly you reach a point where a lot of these houses need substantive work, and some of them need to get torn down and done over. And so
Right.
we do both renovations and substantial renovations and new work. And we found that it took till about the end of 2020 for us to start getting very busy. And we've continued to get more and more busy over 2021 and 2022. And certainly in our vendor market with all of our subcontractors, they're all extremely busy too.
What's interesting in our world, in the selling side, we always talk about, the rebuild cost for a new construction for the same home, because people say, hey, I'd like to buy a property. I have, let's just say my budget's $5.5 to $10 million. It's a big budget. I can do a lot of different things with it. So what's on the market? Oh, historically low inventory. Although we've picked up a little bit lately, then they start to go, well, what's the rebuild cost on my 5,000 or 10,000 square foot home in this area? And they never really know. And we can never pinpoint a price per square foot cost to try to talk about rebuild costs, because it depends on where you're looking, what type of property, who's doing the building. Is that soft cost, hard cost? So maybe fill in the audience a little bit about, it's hard. I don't want to pin you to anything, but if you can help us a little bit on what's an actual beautifully done high-end custom built home price per square foot, kind of shed some light on how you would explain that.
Right. And one of the things it's cost per square foot's not a good metric, but it's probably the best metric we have. And so, as we tell people, it's sort of like, when you buy a diamond, buy the carat.
Sure.
It's important. It's not everything. Would you buy a car by the cubic foot? I don't know. Maybe that would be okay. But meanwhile, you do have that ultimately square footage is something that helps to compare stuff and get things normalized a little bit.
Right.
The first question that everyone ought to think about is, how is a square foot defined? And different businesses and people define it differently. So in very broad terms, realtors in general count interior square footage, so inside a wall, for heated conditioned spaces. builders, since we actually have to build from the outside in different wall structures, they can change things. We typically count from the exterior paint in. And then for the two main floors, those would count as full square feet. The basement, look, if you're already building a first and second floor, you've covered the cost of the roof and the foundation and those things. So the basement level, which can be the nicest place in the house, can be somewhere between, say, a quarter and a three-quarter or even a full area.
Right.
Same place with if you have a third floor. If you have a garage, typically that doesn't count for a realtor square foot, but maybe it counts half on a builder square foot if you have living space above. If you don't have living space above, the garage might be a full square foot because, again, you got to pay for the roof and the floors. Silly things like some houses have giant veranda, huge, massive front porches. Some have 10 square feet. So you want to count those as sort of like most typically exterior spaces might be quarter to a half space, depending what they are. So defining what a square foot is a very important aspect. The second part is, what are you including in the cost? So I used to get asked, and it took me a long time to catch on to this, but for about 10 years, people would ask, it's like, so does your square foot cost include your fee? And I'd always go, well, of course it does. I mean, what is it? It's not meaningful without me including the fee.
Right.
And after about 10 years, it dawned on me that, wait a minute, people are asking because some people don't include that. And that's an important part of the fee structure. So knowing, is the fee included? Are you including on-site supervision? Is there specialty electronics? What happens under a driveway? How do you count for site package? So there's a lot of questions to ask. All of that being said, we've definitely seen a jump in our square foot. Right. So for at Hobbs Inc., we keep a very detailed historical record of our bids and our builds.
Okay.
And from that, we're able to really go ahead and extrapolate, what's a square foot cost. And throughout like the teens, the prices didn't change a ton. They did grow up. I mean, you certainly had a little bit of a creep up. The biggest part of the jump during the teens was people wanted more expensive stuff. So ultimately, what drives the cost of construction is the selections and the design. And over the teens, people wanted more expensive, nicer things. So, of course, the cost went up a little bit. Right now, things are still very, very volatile, and pricing is jumping, and we don't really have a great grasp as to exact square foot costs. That all being said, if you were to take your standard, if you were to take, say, let's say like a 7,000 to 10,000 builder square foot house, which for realtor size, if you were to knock that down by 20 to 30%, that's as good a rule of thumb as you could probably have. If you ended up having, under things that even ended up becoming so funny is that you used to really define between a shingle style house, so wood shingle walls, wood shingle roof versus, say, a stone and a slate roof. But the price of cedar has gone insane.
Right.
And so the pricing of the two things has really come together much closer, which causes us to be nervous and trying to quote things that don't really make sense to us in our long term. But that being said, if you're somewhere in the neighborhood for a builder square foot for very nice stuff, and let's say the Greenwich market, not the nicest, there is no upper limit.
Sure.
On a conventional build, you'd probably be in somewhere in like the $650 to $850 a square foot range.
Right.
If you go much more, I'll call it sort of transitional architecture on the inside, where you're doing riglets and reveals that are much more modern details, and your millwork has metal inlays or stone or glass inlays, you can easily add another $100, $150 a square foot. If you jump to a contemporary house, so I mean all the real modern looking stuff that you have with overhangs and big glass, there's a couple designs you can do that are about the same cost as the more conventional. Most of the designs end up, you're starting at $1,200 a square foot, and you can easily get to double that. Because a lot of the details are just essentially you have to build the house as a cabinet, and that cabinet is watertight. It's fully conditioned. It's got everything has to be perfect in it, and that's what drives those costs higher.
I mean, if you're talking about like, no, that's fine. I mean, you do the math. It's something that's a new build, $1,000 a square foot being the benchmark. Let's just say in a high end market, right? you want $1,000 a square foot, you know. And are you talking when you're doing your costs? Are you talking about just the build costs? Or are you talking about utility costs and bringing all that stuff in? And you're not also obviously there's also land purchase and everything that's got to go
Sure.
along with it. But are you talking about utility bringing in?
So our cost would be basically, and it all depends, because I mean, if you're on a 50-acre site in northern Westchester County, you know, bringing in the driveway and the utilities can be hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
If you're on a quarter-acre lot down on the water in Westport or something, you know, bringing the utilities might be $10,000. So a lot of this does depend. If for normal stuff, an $850 to $1,000 a square foot, you're counting a lot of those things for a normal type house.
Okay.
Again, if you've got a massive lot, if you have something very unusual, it probably doesn't count it. And as we always caution people, there's really no upper end. Our clients have always surprised us. As soon as we think we've seen the most expensive there can be, they come up with something new and you're going, wow, that's very impressive.
Right.
And it comes with a price tag that matches.
Oh yeah. Being somebody who has sold recently some very nice high-end contemporaries or these modern farmhouse style kind of style all glass, it's amazing. People want that again because they want this vibe, especially a lot of our markets coming from outside of Greenwich. So there's different lifestyles, different preferences for people. Whereas maybe before it was a lot more contemporary, a lot more colonial, classic, Georgian colonial styles, where now we're getting a little bit to some different stuff. The materials cost a lot more. That styles cost a lot more money. So people always say, well, where do we have any? Well, that, like, for example, Greenwich, there just is not a lot of contemporaries because there's never been. That's just not the market for that. This is not exactly the Hamptons on the beach where there's a lot more all glass contemporaries for sale. What do you say to somebody who's saying, well, I can't find it. I want to build it. But my budget is $5 to $7 million, but I got to have 10,000 square feet. It becomes, that's the problem that we're running into is, well, there's not enough inventory. Do I just buy land and build, or do I wait, or what do I do? And for someone who has means, it can be tricky because like, I should be able to do this. And then when you start talking about some build costs and how they have gone up, but it sounds like you can work with people on how to customize it because it is custom. It is not spec. You can kind of get it down. What are you seeing as some of the biggest challenges facing you in that aspect?
I mean, the first one is that budget hurdle. And unfortunately, the reality is the reality. In a hat that I wear in New Canaan is I'm in charge of the Affordable Housing Commission in New Canaan.
Right.
And we're building a bunch of, we being the housing authority, are building a bunch of units in New Canaan. And a problem with building affordable housing is that that's just the name of it. The cost of construction or the cost of construction, whether you're doing affordable or regular, and you can't get around that math. And we've seen even like under the affordable housing side, the costs have gone up, $100, $150 a square foot over the last 2 years. I mean, it's been pretty dramatic. Steel, all the commodities are way up. The labor's way up. All the labor has to drive. With the price of gas getting up, it's up. All the deliveries are up. So it's working with clients to understand the reality. And hopefully they understand the fact that, as with so many parts of life, you're not going to get something for nothing. Mm-hmm. And so, if somebody comes in and tells you that they can go ahead and build this for $350 a square foot, and other people who are reputable, who you like their work, say it's $700 or $800 for what you're asking for, don't believe the $350. Because, I mean, by the way, you're going to find that out somewhere during the process. So, I mean, I've actually asked clients, it's like, when they ask, what's this going to cost? It's like, well, when do you want to know the answer to that question? Right. And if you want to know now, then we're much closer to being your builder, because I'd much rather deal with these things up front. Make sure you're starting on a journey where you can end up where you are comfortable, versus starting on a journey where halfway through you realize that you've got to find a lot more money. And that's very uncomfortable and not a good situation for anyone.
And also this whole thing, as we're kind of talking about material costs, because you have there's the overhead for labor and subcontracting, but then you mainly have a lot of this material costs all going up, and it kind of squeezes out some of the lower market, where if you get a builder saying, oh, I'll build you that, what's your budget? 1.5? All right, well, 5,000 square feet. what materials you want to use and how are you building this? Because in some markets, it's just not obtainable. It's just not a thing. So it seems almost too like if you're a high-end custom builder with clients who can afford this, you're going to be okay. It just kind of squeezes out some of the custom home people that want to build a house at a lower price points, I guess.
Well, and we end up running into, I mean, for some of our competitors, there's some good competitors out there, and then there's people that until you've worked in this business, you don't understand the standards of the architects, the designers, and the owners for what a lot of this work that we do. You don't get the standards. You don't understand that you're really working toward 16th of an inch tolerances. You're looking for darn near perfect finishes. You're looking for materials that are very difficult to work with. And so sometimes guys will float up and they'll sit there and they'll go, wow, that's more money than I could ever imagine being paid to build something. But they don't understand what they're building. And again, that causes trouble along the way, which is unfortunate for everybody. It's unfortunate for the builder who may go broke, and it's unfortunate for the owner who may think they're spending $2 million, and before they know it, they're in for $4 million. So it does become, it's a tricky process, and making sure that the contractor knows how to budget, how to update budgets, how to provide, sometimes how to keep everything out in front and open is very important.
Yeah. Well, being around for 65 years and having the reputation that you have, obviously you guys are doing the communication side and making sure that you have good people working for you. You wouldn't be able to do that if you didn't, especially in all these markets. What have you seen? What's more difficult or has been a little bit more difficult, dealing with some of the costs of materials or finding good labor and people to work? I guess, what have you seen as the more difficult side?
I mean, it's a great question, and it's probably, as with a lot of my answers, a little more complex than I'd like to go ahead and give. But
sure, yeah,
I mean, we believe in being a premier employer. We want to hire the best people. We want to pay them fairly for the roles. We want to make sure we take care of them so they can be with us for the long haul. And we've got to take care of our employees because our clients are very demanding and they expect a lot from us. So we've got to make sure our employees work well. In this market right now, it's just, I think everyone almost in any business will tell you about how it seems as if, like with the whole economy, there's some giant dump trucks of sand out there. And all that the dump trucks do is just drive around and they pour it into the gears of the economy. And everything just grinds and becomes harder and harder to do. I mean, we've experienced shortages of things that we've never had shortages of before. I mean, we ran out of Connecticut fieldstone inside of the browns and inside of the grays. Running out of Connecticut fieldstone, that's impossible. I mean, that's all Connecticut grows. And sure enough, I mean, you run out of it. And you're like, okay, well, let's. How do you backtrack through the quarries? Who's got what? What do you have to do? How do you work through these things? And that takes its toll on the employees. And so it's a back and forth. So how can you actually find people, make sure that they're trained, take care of the people that you have, try to set up situations where they don't burn out? Because I mean, everyone really wants to do a good job. They're committed to doing a good job. We don't like disappointing our clients, but when you get bad news under things that you can't control, you have to deliver that bad news and you have to scramble and try to do the best you can, knowing that certain events, this is the best. And that's very frustrating for all of us who have really high standards.
So the custom build high-end home market is, I want to say it's competitive, and it isn't. It isn't in the fact that there's not a lot of people who can do it with the longevity of you as you guys that do that fine-tune and detailed work. But there are some other competitors out there. There's some great custom home builders.
Sure.
How in 2022 and going on, how do you guys differentiate yourself from maybe what other companies do, regardless of whatever it is they do or whoever it is they are? What specifically do you guys do that separates you so much, besides just amazing track record, obviously?
Well, we made a decision to become bigger. And the advantage of becoming bigger is that now you can actually really support with infrastructure what you're trying to do. So, I mean, the size of our projects are very much commercial in size. I mean, they're commercial in size and they're a lot more complicated than commercial projects. So you've got to have really a commercial infrastructure behind the scenes in order to make sure that to help ensure that these projects go as well as possible. We then go ahead and we recognize the fact that, look, building a home is not building an office building. This is a very emotional process. You're tied in closely with the family, with their dreams, with their hopes, with a whole bunch of emotional aspects. So you have to really go ahead and put a residential interface on a commercial company. And that residential interface means that we're there for them personally. We'll make sure that they that we've staffed our jobs with the right people to do the right job, to deliver the right services for our clients. And because of our size, our infrastructure gets spread over a lot of projects. So we end up being the same cost as other people who provide custom home building services, but we tend to provide a lot more on the back end of things. So our paperwork's better, our computer program, our systems that run our programs, our safety program, our financial security, and that we're very well capitalized and have very good lines of credit in order to make sure there's no financial risk. We have a building science guy to make sure that we're always staying on the cutting edge of whatever's happening inside the business. So we believe that it's a much more reliable process, which allows it to be more fun, because this should be fun. I mean, we're not exactly building a mandatory shelter here. We're building something that's really the hopes and dreams, and how do you make it so when the family's there and they're enjoying themselves, they go, God, this was just a great time getting here, and I love this house, and I have such great memories of creating it and just creating that great feeling about a house. To do that requires a lot of hard work on the back end. And we warn clients that no matter how hard we try or how well we do, there will be bad days. And we'll deal with those openly and honestly, and we'll get through them, and we'll keep moving on to make a successful project.
You hear a lot of, one of the biggest things you always hear from people when they're building a home is like just sometimes the drama and the stress. And I think, like what you said, a lot of that is due to the fact that whoever the operator, whoever is the coordinator of the whole process, the building company, has a lot to do with whether or not they're going to make that more stressful than it really should be. One of the big things is the timelines, right? Okay, I found my land. I know what I want, but something might creep up on the market that I want to buy in a couple months. Whereas if I build this property, it's going to take me and that's another thing. It's like price per square foot. Nobody actually knows what it timeline wise. Right. What are you seeing timeline wise? About the same as it always was? You track the data, same as it always was, or is it now becoming longer, or what are you seeing?
It's becoming longer, and there's a couple ways to help ameliorate that. Number one, the design professionals are busy too. So, I mean, it used to be you could call up and you get an architect and they'd be right there with their team and they'd design something. Now all the architects are busy. So it takes them a while in order to even be ready to look at your project. So if somebody's becoming interested, well, you can talk to the designers. If you think you might be doing a custom home, talking to the architects and the designers before you actually have a piece of property is a good idea. And at least know who you feel comfortable with, try to work out, what's the pricing, go through that process, because whenever you actually decide on somebody, it's going to take a while for them to get there. Meanwhile, all the approval people with the attorneys, the civil engineers, all of them, they're backed up. Town halls are backed up. And for contractors, we've always been a great believer in what's called the construction management process, where an owner goes ahead and hires an architect, hires a builder, and then works together in order to create the budgets in the house. And that way the owner's always getting good feedback as to feasibility, pricing, and you're much less likely to have surprises down the road. These days, it's almost mandatory to do that, because otherwise the builder's not going to be available. I mean, you ought to be worried if you call up a builder and say, I want you to come build my house starting tomorrow, and they go, great, I have nothing else to do. And that's not a good sign. I mean, and again, people have cancellations and things pop up and become different, but that's not a good sign. So getting the builder involved earlier, which allows the builder to go ahead and get the excavator and the concrete guy and the framer and the windows, get those all started early, that's able to keep the schedule much more reduced. But otherwise, I mean, if you were to say that you have 6 months worth of design, another 3 or 4 months worth of approvals and getting stuff ready, and then a build for a 7,000-8,000 square foot house, you've got to probably figure 16 months if you've had the builder working along with you, so that when he starts, the windows have been ordered and you have the first trades all set. that's still relatively aggressive. And so, I mean, you're talking it's a 2 to 3 year process that can become much longer if you change your mind and if you haven't started those, if you haven't already gotten the architect involved early and the builder involved early, you can add another year.
Really? So we're talking about almost 2 to 3 years on a high-end custom build home, the process from start to finish, from just even going from the initial permitting process or looking for the land, the architectural designs and the whole thing.
Correct. But I think that you know, as a realtor, you've probably realized that, some of our clients have gone out and looked at 40 to 50 houses.
Yep.
The reality is, if you have a good realtor and you've looked at 40 to 50 houses, you've seen everything that might possibly make you happy. And at that point, you ought to really start thinking custom, because the odds that the 51st house is going to be the one that you fall in love with is pretty slim. Can happen, but
that's the conversation. I'm not kidding you. I've sold houses and my clients have come to me and like, oh, we wanted that one and we just couldn't pull the trigger. So find me that one again. Well, that was a custom built modern contemporary. So, okay, let's just try to find that. It doesn't exist. I can literally tell you it doesn't exist because I can tell you how many homes are even available, how many homes are even in the town, not even for sale, and how many are modern contemporaries. And there's like maybe a handful. And how many want to sell? Some do, most all don't. So you'd have to find someone who's going to build a spec home of that, and that ain't happening. Spec is going to be very difficult right now, if at all, period. So most of these homes are still going to be an option for you if you're willing to do a custom. So if someone does come to you and says, I'm kind of on that fence, what do you say if someone says, well, I mean, I maybe want to wait a little bit because maybe your price per square foot will come down if your material costs come down, and maybe it becomes a little bit more affordable for me, or I'll think about a little bit less on the square footage, or the land cost comes down a little bit. What do you say to that person as opposed to, listen, I know it's going to be a long haul, got a couple of years, but if you're willing to be here anyway, give me a year and a half, 2 years, and we'll build you the dream home. How do you talk them about that when they're in that spot?
Well, I'd say if they're a commodity trader and really into all of the trading and understanding the pricing, they probably know the answer better than we do. And if they're not, they probably have no idea as to whether or not stuff will go up or down. I'm actually an economist by training. I have an MBA, and I always kind of laugh at people whenever, I laugh when someone says, this time is different. Well, this time is kind of different. I mean, we've gone through well over a decade of underinvesting inside of our real estate, our residential real estate. The number of transactions, again, has just been, it's off the charts. And that all means that housing is going to have to go ahead and get rejuvenated and brought up and brought along. Meanwhile, on the supply side of the labor, there's nowhere near as many tradespeople doing the work. In the past, there's been times when, Fairfield County is the only place in the United States that is actually booming. That's not true now. I mean, all the rest of the United States is booming, so we're not getting guys from Texas or Florida coming up here to work. We're having guys from here move to Texas and Florida because there's work there. So the supply of labor is very unlikely to go up substantively. The demand for the services is very likely to decrease. Various commodities, they're going to go up or down, but look, if you can hedge that. If you feel that strongly, you can hedge that and go ahead and buy or sell lumber futures. And in the meantime, time is valuable. And anyone that said that last year, that said the market's overheated, I'm going to wait, they're now paying 10% more.
Right.
So how do you want to gamble? Do you really think that stuff is going to come down? And especially at the high end, the number of people that are capable of achieving the levels that a lot of clients want is limited. Say like we work in the Hamptons, there is a limited pool of people that can achieve what the high end customer really wants, and the odds that those guys are going to be desperate for work, very slim. I mean, in the Hamptons, there's been very few downturns. They've been very short downturns, and typically everyone has a backlog to get through the downturns. In Fairfield and Westchester County, no question, there was a great downturn. Inside of the teens, there was periods where things were way down, and that turns around, which it needs to, because otherwise, then there'll be nobody to do the work. I mean, at least now there's really good jobs available inside of all of the trades, and people can make a good living being, building these types of homes.
So if I'm looking for a company to work with, I find there's also people who will pigeonhole builders into their websites, and that's what you build, and that's it. So I want a custom home builder that does modern. So I'll find the modern picture person. Or, you know what? I really like that classic colonial Georgian style, all brick. I'm going to go with that one. Is it fair to put high-end builders kind of into the niche markets, or is it kind of like I can do anything? Like for you guys, would you say you have a specialty niche of home that you guys build and are known for, or can you pretty much do anything?
So I'll answer in two ways. One, there is some validity that you want to make sure that whoever's building for you has done something similar to what you have, because each type of house is a little bit different. Stucco is different than brick, is different than wood, is different from stone. A lot of those things they're not terrifying. That stuff all can end up working itself out. So under more traditional construction, most guys can do most things. If somebody's never done a stucco house, I might be a little bit concerned, but you can buy that expertise. If you're on the water, I'd make sure you had a guy that did it there on the water, because there's a lot of funny things that happen on the water. Contemporary is a little bit different. There's things that you learn when you do some contemporaries, and you learn them pretty quickly. So, I mean, if somebody's done one or two, and they're smart, they've picked up a lot of the real tricks as to how to make these things work correctly. For our company, we spend a lot of time cross-educating. So lessons that we learn on one project get transferred across the whole company. So like with our superintendents, every year they learn about how 20 different houses are built, as opposed to in a lot of other companies that they don't cross-pollinate. So maybe they're doing 3 or 4 projects a year, but each super only learns one project. And so over their 20-year career, they know how to do, or their 40-year career, they built 25 houses. Whereas we try under our side that it's like, look, every year people get exposed to 20 houses. So hopefully that ends up keeping everybody fresh with the modern techniques, fresh with the other things that are happening. We also cross-pollinate inside of the company that, let's say Tony was building a modern house, and now he goes to a stone Georgian, and then he gets to talk to Frank, who just built the stone Georgian. So he gets to get reminded of a couple of tricks. We have checklists, we have common details, we have a lot of stuff to make sure that Tony has Frank's experience, and vice versa. Frank gets thrown over in the contemporary. Here's these things that you got to be paying attention to make sure that you get it right the first time around. So it varies as to the culture of the company, if they really do spread the knowledge, retain the knowledge, have a system of continual improvement or not. And it depends, again, how close something is. Like, I mean, if you're talking about a brick or a stone house, there's more similarities than there are dissimilarities. So you don't have to pigeonhole.
What are you finding? I mean, being in the business, trends. Obviously, you've seen it over 65 years. I'm sure Hobbs has built many different styles and trends as it's gone through. Where are you seeing the trends now in custom home building, as far as maybe what's being used inside, styles, different things like that?
Sure. I think people there's no question people like more, they like more expensive things that are out there. What's good is that there's actually, there's a whole lot of alternatives to the really expensive stuff that's actually a lot more cost effective. So it's great that people are always chasing that inside the market. So you can go ahead and you don't have to spend top dollar for everything. There's a lot of other alternatives out there. Yeah. I'd say that there's still, especially in Fairfield County and Westchester counties, even in the Hamptons and New Jersey and those places, you still end up with traditional exterior is far more common. Yep. Much more you end up with transitional interior. And transitional can be anything from really, really contemporary to, okay, we've just simplified some of the base, we've got rid of some of the crowns, we're doing certain, riglet or reveal details that are different. There's a lot more of the open floor plan, of course, which is a little bit dangerous. Open floor plan is great, but you got to make sure you actually contain noise. A lot of people have had problems that everything's open. And then you got the 3 boys downstairs wrestling in the basement. You can't sleep in your master bedroom. So making sure you actually have ways that when COVID helped point that out, that when you have a full house, you've got to be able to shut some stuff off. Otherwise,
right.
That family that stays together doesn't love each other as much after a period of time.
Yeah. Are you seeing, obviously this is a big thing, right? The home office. The emphasis on a home office. I'm finding that people are now starting to talk about the home office like a little bit of I want to say a man cave, but it's starting to take a lot of different elements in. It was a home office, then it was a home office media center, and now there's like TVs, a bar, and the whole thing. How have you seen the home office evolve?
I think it depends upon like the size of the house, and as with everything, there's no one solution. There's only alternatives. And so if you don't have a whole lot of extra space, I mean, there's certain places where I don't care how much you're worth on that lot, you can't build a really big house. And so, people having, and for other people, again, budgets is very important. And so you do things like, at my own personal house, our office is the guest bedroom. And we have a very nice guest bedroom. We got certain areas where we can work. We don't have guests that often. And we're not always working every day in our office. So, it's a great thing in order to share the space. It's much more economical. There's a lot of people where I think clearly there's lots of people in Fairfield, Westchester County, and even the Hamptons and northern New Jersey where they've been commuting to the city, and now they don't commute to the city every day. They may go in once, twice a week, but the rest of the time they're at home. And if you've got a real serious job where you've got to really focus and pay attention, and you've got to, and by the way, you're Zooming, so you're on video, and you want to have a professional, area, and you got to be able to close the door, and you got to have great Wi-Fi. So there's a lot of real professional, good offices that make a lot of sense for people. And it really goes across that whole spectrum. We had one client that it was restoring a really old house, and it had a lot of bedrooms down toward the beach. And it was something that you never would have done this in a new house. But because it was the old house, they had the layout, they ended up restoring. And each of the bedrooms, there was a little desk area, and there's a dresser thing. And the bedrooms weren't huge, but they're very comfortable by everyone's standards. And then lo and behold, COVID hit, and so the whole extended family came, and everyone had their workspace in their bedrooms. There's lots of family, common space, and so being able to allow people that flexibility to kids being in a class, parents working different jobs, a returning teen or returning 20-something can come in and do their job while living at home, while everyone's not tense because they have to either be too quiet or share space.
Yeah, those auxiliary spaces for different uses have become more important as the home with COVID taught us that you're going to live out of this. This has got to have everything in it. Dining rooms, formal dining rooms, walled off dining rooms. It started off, you have a dining room. And then what happened was the doors became huge gaps. And then there was just a beam. And then some people's like, do we need a dining room? We have to have a dining room, but they became informal dining. How are you seeing dining room trends?
I think what makes the most sense, which we're seeing more of, is if you have more of sort of like a great room formal area. Mm-hmm. So it's like, look, if you're building a 10, 20,000 square foot house, you need a living room, you need a dining room.
Right.
But they don't have to necessarily be separate. So you create sort of the formal space that has a dining area with a big table, and then the living room space, and that can become the giant family get together, or if you're having a cocktail party or anything else, there's that's sort of the big party space. It's very difficult to justify having a true living room these days. It's also very hard for anyone who's traditional to get rid of their living room. So, do you go ahead and in the dining room, do you have the custom ping pong tabletop made? Do you end up with a special top for your pool table that can be used then as the dining room table? And so people become creative with it. I'd say again on the larger/largest homes, there's always some sort of a formal dining room because it just is.
You need to have it.
But as you start getting down into the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,000 square feet, that's some premium space, and people really they should make that decision actively as to what they want. I mean, as a realtor, at what point do people say I have to have this or I don't?
It's a total individual basis, what they want. Depends on also what they're looking for. It's the same way with you. What our job is to really take their vision of what they have in mind or the lifestyle that they want to live and try to find the closest possible thing to it unless they're going to customize it for themselves and build it. So
Sure.
I definitely see dining rooms as important, and must-haves, because I haven't had anybody in the high-end price point say, "Oh, we don't need a dining room." It's just become a lot more of the dining rooms are almost this. There's maybe one wall, and then there's where the table would be, and then they would serve there, and then people just kind of pass by it, and then it becomes where they put papers. You know what I mean?
Right.
At the high end, obviously, it's all cleaned, but. And then there's a lot of these rooms that are kind of living rooms that could be dining rooms, and they put the sconces that are not sconces. They're closed out with the caps on them. And they say, well, if you ever want to make this a dining room, it could be. It has a see-through fireplace into like the formal study or something. So the versatility of the spaces, I think, is a lot more than, say, the older segregated,
Right.
This is what this is. Like you said, with the open concept feel, it can run away on you sometimes, but I think people love sightlines. They love to be able to feel like when they're cooking and preparing in the kitchen that they have this, maybe a vaulted ceiling space that goes into a living room that they can kind of see into. It just depends on the preference. And also the house you're working with or building, right? So it all depends on that. What are you seeing? And as far as for you guys, how much do you do anything exterior wise as far as landscape and management of that, or are you just doing in the interior work?
Sure. No, we typically anything that actually like touches the house. So if you have a terrace that touches the house, we really insist upon doing that. If something's separated from the house, we can do it or not do it. So we we end up doing the pool. We do most of the hardscape stuff of, say, stone walls and the infrastructure for the site. For plantings, it's kind of a coin toss. We provide a different process and price checks and other things, but ultimately there's other people who do plantings. And, when you get to the warranty side of things, I'm happy to do it or not do it because I don't know if the plant's going to die. And then it's a weird warranty thing that happens there. But typically we'll be inviting, tennis courts, driveways, if you have party barns or other exterior auxiliary structures, we're typically involved in those.
I would say the big three things that we're seeing on that transition where you're going outside of the home is light, bright, and airy, meaning obviously we've had a ton of people who clearly have vacationed in the Hamptons or in Miami or have a home there that want nano doors, nano walls that just slide right open and have this big off the kitchen space that you can go right out to your pool or the patio. And the more glass, the more light, the more open in the back, the better. And is it hard sometimes when you're designing to kind of put that together? Because a lot of people think of the entertaining, here's my patio, here's my pool, here's my space. Okay, I got all that. Now just make this happen with this big door that opens up. Is it become difficult at all to do and engage that in the back of the house?
We spend time with clients trying to figure out if that's really what they want. Because especially like there's God bless them, but there's a lot of people from New York City that have come out here, and they're never going to open the window. They'll open it in order to get out and come back in, or to open it to get out and come back in.
Right.
Like if you have the nano walls, you have to be comfortable with some bugs, or you got to have a really cool screened enclosure thing to deal with it. And in New England, we're in a kind of weird environment that in August you're not opening your nano walls; you will melt and die. Right. You're not doing it in December. So during those, and then by the way, if you're actually going to the Hamptons in July, so now when are you actually using this?
Right.
So and things like the movable glass walls, the nano wall things, they're technologically difficult. We certainly know how to do them. They're expensive. So if you're going to use them and it makes sense and it matches your personality and you're fine with some bugs, you're fine with the humidity in and out, you understand that some of your air conditioning may condense because it's humid and you allow that humid air inside, then it's great. And again, it can work really well for stuff. If on the other hand, again, you're afraid of bugs, you don't like the added humidity, let's do something different that's much more cost effective and you won't end up with more maintenance issues over time. Mm-hmm. So, and again, it is tough to, it's so appealing, the outdoor living for other parts of the country. And we all love during those few months in that period of time when you really can be out there in May and June and September, October, and, sitting at your fire pit during a brisk October night or something's awesome.
Right.
You just want to, if money's no object, you can have a lot of fun. If money's an object, you really want to try to hit that value equation.
You could do anything with money. Sure. You could build whatever you like. You could build a castle, which we did a beautiful video tour on. So you could see on the YouTube, the castle tour. There are a lot of people and builders that we've talked to and that we work with different clients. I have to say, speaking to a couple other people, you are highly, highly referred and spoken highly about. And it is a family business, and the 65 years tradition has been phenomenal. And it's awesome to watch your guys work. Anything you could say to potential people who are looking for a custom home builder in your area, because you do multiple locations, anything that you can give them tips wise or something to think about on making this decision, whether or not, and who to go with and that sort of thing?
Well, finding someone who you can trust is the biggest part of this.
Right.
And that's, I know it's very hard to evaluate, because inevitably the people who survive, they're good salespeople. You feel that you can trust them and make it work. Trying to dig in a little more on the systems is important.
Correct. Yeah.
Without the systems, the complicated projects just don't happen.
Right.
And so if they don't have if they don't have systems that make sense, so accounting systems, checklists, they do have a contract management system for their subcontractors, all of those things, it just becomes you ought to be worried.
Right.
This is a complicated business, and you want to hire somebody who will take that complication from you and make sure that you're going to end up with a good value for your money. And it becomes tricky to do that. So, looking toward longevity is a very good indicator. And obviously, look, if somebody's just taken over a business, there's a break in the longevity. Asking the question whether or not employees, the contractor's employees, how long have they been with this guy?
Mm.
And looking back on that and actually checking, because it's very normal in our business to have people go out there and they get work and they hire the superintendent. And that superintendent's a very important job. He's the guy in the field. And then there's also the project manager. And you can hire those guys, but if they're hired guns, they're not part of the company. They don't have the culture. They don't have the experience. They're not, they're tied in for one job. And that can become kind of scary for an owner. So finding the folks that actually have a culture, a system, the continual improvement, that are trustworthy, that have systems that allow you to trust them, is all something that I think is very important.
Absolutely.
And bring them in early. The earlier the contractor gets there, the more likely you are to end up in a good place. Just because the contractor will help in explaining the budgeting, the scheduling, the how everything ties together, the feasibility, and it helps to avoid missteps along the way. Not all of them, but should help on that.
Hobbsinc.com, the website. Excellent website to find out some other resources on you guys, find out the other properties have been in the press, find out some other properties that you've worked on, and kind of get an idea, a little bit of the work that you do. And where else can people reach out to you if they have any questions or want to speak with you or have a chat?
Sure. We end up having, my own email is S as in Scott, Hobbs at hobbsinc.com. Which is always perfectly fine. And again, on our website, you'll find a lot of information about our Connecticut, our Hamptons, New York City, Northern New Jersey offices. And we've done various articles and other things along the way. And you can go ahead and Google us. You won't find anything bad.
No.
I don't think.
No, you won't. You won't. Very, very reputable. One of the best in the business. If you're looking for a high-end custom home builder in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Hamptons, especially in Connecticut, because that's where we are, come reach out to me, reach out to Scott, check out the website. They're one of the best in the business, have been for 65 years, and will continue for another 65 under Scott's leadership. Scott, anything that we didn't chat about today that you'd like to add?
No, just thank you very much for having me on the program. Enjoy being able to talk about the business, the custom home building business. It's confusing. And if people are thinking about doing a custom build, I recommend, again, talking to contractors early in the process and give yourself time to learn about the process. It's confusing. and the odds you get it the first time is slim. So talking a couple times will allow you to really go ahead and help to get a better feel for what you will be headed toward, which will be realistic and therefore allow you to have a much better time doing the project.
Especially if you're somebody who is really seriously considering this, having kind of this conversation with you and then going looking for the land is important, because a lot of people are like, well, I'm thinking about maybe one or the other, buying now or building. Let me find a piece of land. I find the piece of land. Then they maybe put it under contract, then retroactively try to find you and do all the parts of what the dream home on this little quarter-acre lot. No, you can't build 10,000 square feet there. It's probably not going to work out. So make sure you get your ducks in a row. Make sure you talk to somebody amazing like Scott. Reach out to somebody like me, and then we can look for land together, and we can do it together. Scott, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
You bet, Michael. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And we will leave more information on Hobbs Inc. in the description, and more spaces and places for you to reach out and talk to Scott. And like always, everybody, it is an absolute pleasure. Leaders of Lifestyle Podcast, Mike Ferraro, Scott Hobbs. Take care.